first, phony victims who inflict real pain. That's the focus of tonight's angle. When the Jussie Smollett story first broke, many in the media seemed positively giddy. They were thrilled to push the story that MAGA-headed thugs attacked a black, gay, liberal actor, all in the name of Donald J. Trump.
Now to that attack on a star of the TV show Empire, Jussie Smollet.
Actor and musician Jussie Smollet from the hit show Empire was attacked and beaten early this morning in Chicago.
A Hollywood star who's black and gay, and now the victim of a heinous crime.
Yeah, I did the racial slurs and maybe even some of the homophobic slurs being used toward him. You can see how serious this crime is right now.
Absolutely despicable. And this is America in 2019.
Only as the Chicago Police Department investigated Smollett's story, none of it added up. Now police sources are telling various networks that Smollett himself choreographed the attack, paying a pair of Nigerian brothers to carry it out, even giving them money to buy rope at a local hardware store to make the noose. The trio even rehearsed the encounter in advance. Yet just last week, the Empire actor was afforded a friendly platform on GMA to shop and defend his anti-Trump script.
I can only go off of their words. I mean, who says Empire, this MAGA country?
Why do you think you were targeted?
I can just assume, I mean, I come really, really hard against 45. I come really, really hard against his administration. And I don't hold my tongue.
And the Oscar goes to, well, but eventually those stubborn things called facts got in the way. And suddenly CNN's Brian Stetler and others are now doing the backstroke.
There was a rush to judgment. I think it was mostly in the celebrity press and among activists and among Twitter people. I think it was a really careful reporting by news organizations.
If it turns out that Smollett did indeed orchestrated this attack, paid the attackers, then he's done infinitely more damage to the African-American community, people of color.
There's a lot to be concerned about here. So let's start with the fact that we don't have all the facts yet. We should get them. I think one thing we've learned from how this story has unfolded is let's wait and see.
Oh, finally, let's wait and see. Well, some journalists seem to fall into a state of absolute mourning. In the words of the AP's Lindsay Barr, the outrage has now been replaced by surprise, doubt, and bafflement as the singers, actors, and politicians who came out to support the Empire star struggle to digest the strange twist that the case has taken. Some conservative pundits, meanwhile, have gleefully seized on the moment. No, Lindsay, you're wrong. It was the left, the political, media, and Hollywood establishment that seized on the moment because this Smollett tall tale advanced their anti-Trump zealotry. Now we're learning just the inverse is true. Media and political heavyweights were once again willing to slander innocent people, an entire class of people, in a desperate attempt to justify their hatred of Donald Trump. The Democratic 2020 frontrunners tripped over themselves to fan the flames of the Smollett attack. Cory Booker and Kamala Harris called it, quote, a modern-day lynching and urged anti-lynching legislation in response to the attack. Well, on Sunday, Booker suddenly took a more sober, careful approach, saying he wouldn't further address the matter, quote, until all information actually comes out. How convenient. If only he had exercised such caution when the story first broke. Of course, he tried to get off the defensive really fast, though, contending at a town hall that
we know in America that bigoted and biased attacks are on the rise in a serious way. We actually even know in this country that since 9/11, the majority of the terrorist attacks on our soil have been right-wing terrorist attacks.
Oh, the man has absolutely zero shame. Ditto for Kamala Harris.
Which tweet? What tweet?
About saying that it is a modern-day lynching, that...
sorry.
Yes, Jussie Smollett.
Okay, so I will say this about that case. I think that the facts are still unfolding, and I'm very concerned about, obviously, the initial allegation that he made about what might have happened.
I like how she does this and then laughs. It's really funny. Not. Well, of course, the dim bulbs in the entertainment industry were also eager to advance the MAGA lynching story, taking Smollett at his word, despite circumstances that, let's face it, were really fishy from the outset. Canadian actress Ellen Page made the pilgrimage to Colbert, where she made the mistake of delivering her own lines.
The Vice President of America wishes I didn't have the love with my wife. Connect the dots. This is what happens. If you are in a position of power and you hate people and you want to cause suffering to them, you go through the trouble. You spend your career trying to cause suffering. What do you think is going to happen? And people are going to be beaten on the street.
Well, this is a classic example of wish fulfillment syndrome. When you want something so desperately that you're able to ignore the obvious warning signs. Now, think about it this way. The left has staked so much of their own identity and credibility on the plot line that Trump is a really bad man, that they need him to be a really bad man, one who inspires vitriol and violence like the sort that the Empire actor alleged. Now, Smollett himself is rapidly anti-Trump, and speculation is swirling that he orchestrated the faux attack to propel himself to some type of hero status in Hollywood. In other words, kind of think of it the new superhero, Jussie, the MAGA Slayer. Well, the same rush to judgment, though, happened recently with the Covington Catholic high school boys, when allegations became liberal gospel. The white kids in the red hats may as well have been wearing white hoods. Like Kavanaugh accusers Christine Blasey Ford and Julie Swetnick before him, Smollett was allowed to dominate a news cycle because his allegations ultimately reflected badly on President Trump, or so he hoped. But where's the justice when the social justice warriors are actually the ones purveying fraud, hatred, and poison? Nick Sandmann, that Covington Catholic kid, is right to sue everyone who accused him of racism, and I hope he wins big. Brett Kavanaugh had his life turned upside down in the most humiliating way. And we're still waiting for the DOJ prosecution of Swetnick and Avenatti. And meanwhile, Blasey Ford herself collected over $800,000 through a GoFundMe account, supposedly applied to cover her security costs. And as for that Feinstein staffer who likely leaked her original letter, we're still waiting on the Senate Judiciary Committee's findings there. But the fact is, most of the left-wing false accusers operate with impunity because conservatives usually choose to just move on. That's a huge mistake. If these phonies like Smollett aren't made to pay for their defamatory tall tales, we'll just see more of it as 2020 approaches. Even the man who's in the false narrative Hall of Fame seems to kind of agree.
If it is found that Smollett and these gentlemen did in some way perpetrate something that is not true, they ought to face accountability to the maximum. But let's not act like this is some left-wing hoax that some are saying on social media.
Oh, no, it's not a left-wing hoax at all, Al. Okay. What is it then? Well, speaking of frauds, maybe Andrew McCabe can argue that the president himself hired Smollett and the Nigerians at the behest of the Russians to carry out the whole thing. Hey, they might as well try to bring all these fraudulent storylines together. Think about how much fun that'll be. And that's the angle.